The crystalline transport ship descended through the atmosphere of Nexus Prime, its prismatic hull reflecting the light of 3 suns in a dazzling display. Inside, Zilera pressed her delicate fingers against the viewport, her iridescent scales shifting from azure to violet with anticipation. The Galactic University of Sciences sprawled beneath them, a masterpiece of engineering that housed the greatest minds from across the known universe. As the ship touched down on the quantum-stabilized landing pad, Zilera gathered her courage along with her belongings. She had earned her place here, graduating top of her class on Viridia, but standing among the diverse species of the galaxy was entirely different from reading about them in holobooks. The ship's doors parted with a gentle hiss, releasing a stream of students into the arrival terminal. Zilera's sensory tendrils quivered at the overwhelming input. The excited chatter in dozens of languages, the scent of various atmospheres mixing in the environmental processors, and the gentle vibration of gravity adjusters accommodating different physiological needs. She activated her anti-grav storage unit, watching as other new arrivals expertly manipulated similar devices. A group of crystalline beings floated past, their bodies naturally attuned to the gravitational fields. A pair of methane-breathing Creotians moved through their designated atmospheric corridor, their environmental suits gleaming. The terminal opened into the main campus thoroughfare, and Zilera's breath caught in her throat. The buildings weren't just tall. They seemed to defy the very concept of architectural limitations. Quantum glass spires twisted impossibly upward, their surfaces displaying real-time data streams and atmospheric conditions. Bridges of pure energy connected various structures, their pathways adjusting automatically to accommodate the different sizes and locomotion methods of passing students. Her attention snapped back to her immediate surroundings as her storage unit's anti-grav field fluctuated. The device, calibrated for Viridian gravity, struggled to adjust to the university's dynamic gravitational environment. Zilera's delicate frame strained as she tried to stabilize the unit, her scales flickering anxiously between colors. The shadow fell over her so suddenly that her sensory tendrils reflexively coiled. Stories from her childhood surfaced unbidden. Tales of the Deathworlders, beings who evolved on planets with gravity so crushing and environments so harsh that they developed incredible physical strength. Humans, they were called, and they were said to be as dangerous as they were resilient. Zilera turned slowly, her head tilting back and back until she could see the human's face. The being stood nearly twice her height, with dense musculature visible even through the standard university attire. Everything about their physical presence screamed danger to her Viridian instincts, which had evolved for flight rather than fight. Yet something made her pause. Her empathic senses, highly developed even for a Viridian, detected no aggression from the human. Instead, there was a gentle concern radiating from them, so unexpected that it momentarily scrambled her usual emotional readings. The human's expression shifted into what Zilera would later learn was called a smile, though at that moment it seemed both fascinating and mildly terrifying. Those strong hands, capable of bending metal, reached toward her storage unit with surprising grace. Anti-grav units can be tricky in the adaptive gravity fields, the human said, their voice much softer than their appearance would suggest. The university uses a dynamic system to accommodate all species, but it takes some getting used to. I remember my first day here, ended up chasing my belongings all over the quantum physics wing. The human's gentle humor and obvious attempt to appear less intimidating created an odd contrast with their physical presence. Zilera's scientific curiosity began to override her initial fear. Here was a perfect example of why she had come to the Galactic University, to learn about and understand the incredible diversity of life in the universe. Her storage unit gave another worrying fluctuation, and this time, she found herself willing to accept help from this unexpected source. Perhaps, she thought, this was the first of many lessons she would learn at the university, that appearances and preconceptions rarely told the whole story. Sarah Chen adjusted the anti-grav unit's frequency with practiced ease, her fingers dancing across the control panel with surprising dexterity. The storage unit's erratic bobbing smoothed into a stable hover, and Zilara's colors shifted to a more relaxed shade of blue-green. I'm Sarah, fourth-year xenobiology student. The human introduced herself, keeping her movements deliberately measured. The residence complex is this way, if you'd like some company while navigating the gravity fields. She gestured toward a spiraling path that wound between quantum blast buildings. Zilara found herself nodding, her scientific mind already cataloging the fascinating contradictions before her. The human moved with a fluid grace that seemed at odds with her dense musculature, each step precisely calculated to appear non-threatening. I'm Zilara, she offered, her voice gaining confidence. First year, specializing in empathic xenobiology. They walked together along the path, which adjusted its gradient to compensate for their different physiological needs. Sarah pointed out landmarks as they passed. The shimming library of infinite knowledge, the hovering quantum computing labs, and the ever-changing architecture of the Species Integration Center. The university can be overwhelming at first, Sarah admitted, effortlessly guiding the storage unit around a corner. I remember walking into my first xenobiology lecture and finding myself surrounded by species that breathe methane. Spent the whole class worried I'd accidentally contaminate their atmosphere with oxygen. Zilara's tendrils curled in what Sarah recognized as amusement. Did you? She asked, her earlier fear giving way to genuine curiosity. Thankfully, no. The environmental barriers here are top-notch, though I did once accidentally activate the gravity inverter in the cafeteria. Floating soup is quite the sight across species. Sarah's laugh was warm and rich, vibrating at a frequency that Zilara's empathic senses found surprisingly pleasant. As they approached the residence complex, they passed a group of crystalline beings engaged in what appeared to be a heated debate about quantum entanglement. Their bodies chimed with each emphatic point, creating an impromptu symphony of academic discourse. The diversity here is incredible, Zilara observed, her scientific enthusiasm beginning to overcome her initial reservations. On Viridia, we rarely interact with species so different from our own. The environmental requirements alone. That's what makes this place special, Sarah agreed, pausing to let a levitating silicon-based life form cross their path. We all evolved under different stars, adapted to different worlds, but here we learn from each other. Did you know that human medical techniques have been revolutionized by studying Viridian empathic healing? Zilara's scales flickered with surprise. I didn't realize humans had any interest in empathic sciences. Our historical records suggest your species relies primarily on physical solutions. Sarah's expression softened. That's a common misconception. Humans are adaptable. It's our greatest strength. We evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme environmental variations. Yes, but that same adaptation drive pushes us to understand and learn from every species we encounter. They'd reached the residential wing, where the architecture seamlessly blended different environmental needs. Atmospheric barriers separated methane-breathing quarters from oxygen-rich zones, while gravity panels created comfortable living conditions for species of all densities. Your room should be in the oxygen standard section, Sarah said, consulting the hovering directory. Though given your empathic abilities, they've probably placed you in the low-sensitivity wing. The emotional overflow in the main dormitories can be intense. Zilara's tendrils extended slightly, sampling the emotional atmosphere. You know about Viridian empathic sensitivity. Xenobiology major, remember. Sarah's smile widened. Besides, understanding other species' needs is crucial for coexistence. Humans might look intimidating, but we've learned that strength isn't just about physical capability. As they located Zilara's room, the Viridian found herself reevaluating her preconceptions. The human before her defied every warning tale she'd heard, every cautionary lesson about Deathworlders. Here was someone who used their strength not to dominate, but to help, who applied their adaptability to understanding rather than conquering. Thank you, Zilara said softly, her colors shifting to a warm golden hue of gratitude. Perhaps Perhaps you could tell me more about human adaptability sometime. The botanical gardens of the Galactic University sprawled across an entire biodome, hosting species from thousands of worlds. Zil-Era sat cross-legged on a hover cushion beside a cluster of bioluminescent flowers from the Andromeda galaxy, their petals pulsing in harmony with her breathing. 3 weeks had passed since her arrival, and she'd found herself drawn to this peaceful sanctuary between classes. Sarah approached with 2 containers of synthesized nutrients, each specially calibrated for their distinct physiologies. The cafeteria finely programmed in traditional Viridian seasonings, she said, handing Zil-Era a container that shimmed with an iridescent liquid. Though I had to convince them that humans don't actually eat everything with maximum spice levels. Your species' tolerance for capsaicin still baffles our biochemistry professors, Zil-Era replied, her tendrils curling with amusement as she accepted the drink. Her initial fear of the human had transformed into fascination over their daily study sessions. They had chosen this particular spot for their cultural exchange discussions, surrounded by flora that reminded them both of home while highlighting the vast differences in their origins. Sarah's datapad projected a holographic image of Earth's rainforests between them, the lush vegetation a stark contrast to the crystalline gardens of Viridia. It's strange, Sarah mused, watching a simulated bird flit through the hologram. Humans often take Earth's biodiversity for granted, but seeing it through your eyes reminds me how unique each evolutionary path is. Your crystal forests literally shape your society's empathic connections. Zil-Era's scales shifted to a thoughtful purple as she extended her consciousness toward a nearby phosphorescent vine. Just as your world's varying climates drove your species to develop such remarkable adaptability. Though I still don't understand how you manage in cold environments with so little internal temperature regulation. Says the one who can photosynthesize. Sarah laughed, adjusting her position to avoid disturbing a floating cluster of spores. But that's what makes the university special. Every species brings their own perspective, their own solutions to universal challenges. A group of energy-based students drifted past, their forms rippling with curiosity as they observed the unlikely pair. Zil-Era had noticed fewer strange looks lately. Perhaps the sight of a human and Viridian sharing knowledge was becoming less remarkable. The stars looked different from Earth, Sarah said suddenly, expanding the hologram to show Earth's night sky. But they're the same stars, just seen from another angle. Sometimes I think that's what we're doing here, learning to see the same universe through different eyes. Zil-Era's tendrils extended toward the holographic stars, her natural ability to perceive energy patterns allowing her to appreciate the subtle differences in their light. On Viridia, we don't just see stars, we feel their songs through our crystal spires. Each one has a unique resonance that our ancestors learned to interpret. That's fascinating. Sarah leaned forward, her academic curiosity evident. Is that why your scientific notation uses harmonic frequencies instead of standard numerical sequences? Their conversation flowed naturally between topics, each insight revealing new connections between their seemingly disparate worlds. They discussed how Earth's gravity influenced human art, just as Viridia's crystal formations shaped their architecture. They compared how their species perceived color, time, and even the concept of family. A soft chime echoed through the garden, signaling the approach of evening. The bioluminescent flowers around them began their nightly color change, responding to the shifting light levels. Sarah gathered their empty containers while Zil-Era deactivated the hologram. Same time tomorrow? Sarah asked, standing with the fluid grace that still amazed Zil-Era. I'd love to hear more about how your empathic abilities interface with our university's quantum networks. Zil-Era's scales rippled with anticipation, settling into the warm gold that Sarah had learned meant happiness. Actually, she said, her tendrils swaying gently, would you be interested in collaborating on a xenobiology research project? I think our different perspectives might offer unique insights. Sarah's smile reflected the genuine warmth that Zil-Era's empathic senses had come to associate with their friendship. I thought you'd never ask. The holographic laboratory hummed with energy as Sarah and Zil-Era prepared their experimental setup. Their xenobiology research project had drawn curious glances from faculty members, particularly after they'd submitted their unconventional proposal combining human adaptive biology with viridian empathic sensing. Neural pathway synthesis stable, Sarah announced, monitoring the quantum displays that floated around their workstation. She'd modified the equipment to accommodate Zilera's unique sensory input methods, adding crystalline interfaces that resonated at frequencies compatible with viridian biology. Zilera's tendrils extended toward their test subject, a simple cellular culture suspended in a quantum field. Her scales shifted through shades of deep concentration as she connected with the sample's basic life force. The empathic signatures are clearer with your modifications. I can detect cellular responses that our traditional methods might miss. Their project aimed to revolutionize how species studied one another. By combining Sarah's understanding of physical adaptation with Zilera's empathic abilities, they hoped to create a new framework for xenobiological research. The implications for medicine alone were staggering. Professor Kekal, a respected quantum biology researcher, materialized near their station. The energy-based beings form rippled with interest as they observed the students' work. Most unusual, they commented, their thoughts translating directly into standard galactic communication. Your approach challenges several established paradigms. Sarah adjusted the quantum field's strength, her movements precise despite her natural physical power. Traditional methods often miss the subtle interactions between different evolutionary adaptations, she explained. By incorporating viridian empathic sensing, we can observe cellular responses in real time. And the human capacity for environmental adaptation provides insights into how different species might process these empathic signals, Zilera added, her confidence growing. The nervous student from the first day had blossomed into a passionate researcher. Their workstation displayed a complex array of data, standard scientific measurements alongside wavelength patterns that represented empathic responses. The combination painted a more complete picture of life at its most fundamental level. Watch this, Sarah said, introducing a carefully measured environmental stressor to their sample. The quantum displays erupted with activity as Zilera's empathic readings detected the cellular response milliseconds before it appeared in the conventional data. Fascinating, Professor Kekal pulsed. You've effectively created an early warning system for biological reactions. The medical applications alone. Their forms shimmered with excitement as they drifted away to spread the word among the faculty. Other students had begun to gather at a respectful distance, their diverse forms representing dozens of species. The sight of a human and viridian working in such close coordination challenged many preconceptions about species compatibility. Their curiosity feels different now, Zilera observed, her tendrils sensing the emotional atmosphere. Less skeptical, more inspired. She made a minor adjustment to the crystalline interface, causing the empathic wavelength display to shift into clearer focus. Sarah smiled as she recorded another set of measurements. That's how progress happens. One discovery, one connection at a time. She paused, considering their next step, ready to test the adaptive response sequence. The next hour flew by as they documented how their sample responded to various stimuli. Sarah's expertise in environmental adaptation helped them design tests that would have never occurred to traditional viridian researchers, while Zilera's empathic insights revealed patterns that standard instruments couldn't detect. As they compiled their initial findings, a notification flashed across their displays. The University Research Board had taken notice of their work. Their project had been selected for presentation at the upcoming Xenobiology Symposium. They want us to demonstrate our methodology to researchers from across the galaxy, Sarah read, her excitement evident in her careful control of movement. A detail Zilera had learned to recognize. Zilera's scales blazed with brilliant colors of joy and anticipation. We're really doing this, she said, her tendrils swaying gently. Creating something new by combining our differences. Sarah's hand hovered near the quantum controls, not touching but sharing the moment of triumph. Together, she agreed, We're rewriting the boundaries of what's possible. The quantum biology laboratory buzzed with activity as students from a dozen species conducted their experiments. Crystalline beings chimed softly as they analyzed molecular structures, while energy-form researchers pulsed between workstations. Sarah and Zillara focused on their latest test series, their successful partnership having inspired several other cross-species research teams. Quantum field stabilizing at 98%, Sarah reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Their experiment involved studying cellular adaptation responses across different gravitational conditions, building on their groundbreaking methodology. Zillara's tendrils extended toward their test sample, her scales shimmering with concentration. Empathic readings are clear. The cellular matrix is accepting the new parameters. She had grown confident in her abilities, no longer startled by Sarah's proximity. The first warning came through Zillara's heightened senses, a discordant ripple in the quantum field maintaining their sample's containment. Her tendrils recoiled as she detected a surge of unstable energy. Sarah, something's wrong with the field harmonics. Sarah's eyes snapped to the diagnostic displays, her enhanced reaction time allowing her to process the cascading alerts instantly. The containment field is destabilizing. The sample's crystalline structure is becoming unstable. Her voice carried across the laboratory, clear and commanding without being harsh. Before either of them could react further, the quantum containment field collapsed with a brilliant flash. Crystalline spores, now energized by the unstable quantum field, burst from their workstation. The particles began replicating at an alarming rate, their structure resonating at frequencies that interfered with the laboratory's environmental systems. Students closer to the breach stumbled as their atmospheric processors struggled. A silicon-based researcher's crystalline form began to crack under the spore's influence. Sarah's Death World evolved lungs automatically adjusted to the degrading air quality, but she could see others beginning to suffer. Emergency protocols, she called out, her voice cutting through the growing chaos. Everyone moved toward the exit gates. Sarah's natural strength and resilience, born from Earth's higher gravity, suddenly became an invaluable asset. Zillara's empathic abilities proved equally crucial. Her tendrils extended outward, sensing the panic and fear radiating from their fellow students. This way, she projected, using her empathic talents to guide the confused researchers toward safety. Her natural ability to process multiple emotional signatures helped her track everyone's location in the chaos. Working in perfect synergy, they coordinated their efforts. Sarah's physical capabilities allowed her to help struggling students while resisting the spore's effects, while Zillara's empathic guidance ensured no one got lost in the confusion. Years of evolutionary adaptations from two very different worlds combined to save lives. The crystalline spores continued to multiply, creating a shimmering haze that distorted the laboratory's quantum field generators. Sarah noticed Zillara's movements becoming sluggish, her sensitive biology reacting strongly to the contaminated environment. Without hesitation, Sarah moved to support her friend. "Hold on to me," she said, her enhanced muscles easily supporting Zillara's weight. "Guide the others out. I'll be your strength. You be their beacon." Together, they managed the evacuation. Sarah's resilient physiology protected them both, while Zillara's empathic abilities coordinated the escape of dozens of students. Their differences, once a source of uncertainty, had become their greatest advantage. As the last student passed through the emergency shields, Sarah carried Zillara through. The containment protocols activated, sealing the laboratory behind them. Emergency response teams materialized from quantum transport pads, their specialized equipment already working to neutralize the crystalline contamination. In the safety of the decontamination chamber, Sarah gently helped Zillara onto a medical hover pad. The Viridian scales had dulled from exposure, but her tendrils still moved with purpose, checking on their fellow students through empathic connection. That, Sarah said with a slight smile, carefully monitoring her friend's condition, wasn't exactly the breakthrough we were hoping for. Her attempt at humor carried undertones of genuine concern. Zillera's colors shifted weakly toward amusement. Perhaps not, she managed, but we proved something just as important. The medical bay's soft blue lighting pulsed in gentle waves, designed to promote healing across multiple species. Zillera rested on a quantum-cushioned bed, her scales slowly regaining their natural luster as specialized treatments purged the last traces of crystalline contamination from her system. Sarah sat nearby, her usual energetic presence tempered by concern for her friend. "Your vital signs are stabilizing nicely," Dr. Nexus announced, their holographic form scanning the medical readouts. The physician's ability to exist as pure data made them ideal for treating multiple species simultaneously. The human's quick action prevented any lasting damage to your empathic centers. Sarah shifted in her chair, careful to move slowly despite her natural strength. She'd refused to leave Zillera's side since the incident, even after the medical staff assured her that her friend would recover fully. "I still don't understand how you knew where everyone was in that chaos," she said softly. Zillera's tendrils extended weakly, sensing the genuine worry and curiosity in Sarah's emotional state. "Every species has a unique empathic signature," she explained, her voice stronger than the previous day. "Humans, interestingly, have one of the most complex patterns I've ever encountered." "Really?" Sarah leaned forward, fascinated despite her concern. "I would have thought our death world evolution would make us more straightforward." She smiled at the term that had once caused such trepidation between them. The medical base quantum displays showed a real-time visualization of Zillera's recovery, crystal matrices slowly realigning as her natural healing abilities worked in harmony with the treatments. "That's what makes humans so remarkable," she continued. "Your species developed both physical and emotional complexity. You're capable of incredible strength, yet you choose when to use it." Dr. Nexus's holographic form flickered with interest, a fascinating observation. The integration of physical capability with emotional intelligence is indeed rare among high-gravity evolved species. Their form expanded, displaying comparative biological data. Most develop one trait at the expense of the other. Sarah considered this, remembering how her protective instincts had kicked in during the crisis. On Earth, survival often meant protecting others, not just ourselves. Physical strength without the wisdom to use it properly wouldn't have gotten us very far. A soft chime indicated another visitor. Professor Ctal's energy form drifted through the medical bay's entrance, their presence carrying an air of authority. "Your actions during the laboratory incident have sparked considerable discussion among the faculty," they announced. "The demonstration of cross-species cooperation was most illuminating." Zillera's scales shifted to a deeper shade of blue as she processed the various emotional signatures around her. "We didn't think about our differences during the crisis," she said thoughtfully. "We just knew how to complement each other's strengths. That's precisely what has caught everyone's attention." Professor Ctal pulsed. "Your research project demonstrated the theoretical potential of combining different evolutionary advantages. Your response to the crisis proved its practical application." Sarah reached out, her hand hovering near Zillera's bed without touching, respecting Viridian personal space even now. "I think we've moved beyond just research partners," she said quietly. "Friends," Zillera agreed, her tendrils extending to bridge the gap between them. "Despite everything our cultures taught us to fear about each other." Dr. Nexus's holographic form brightened with approval. "The university was founded on the principle that diversity breeds innovation. Your partnership embodies that ideal." The medical displays showed Zillera's recovery accelerating, her emotional contentment apparently boosting her natural healing processes. "You know," Sarah mused, watching the healing progress, "back on Earth, there's an old saying, adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. I think this whole experience revealed something important about all of us." Zillera's scales rippled with a weak but genuine display of joy. "It revealed that the stories we tell about other species say more about our fears than their truth." The great amphitheater of the Galactic University hummed with anticipation as beings from across the known universe gathered for the annual Sciences Conference. Floating screens displayed real-time translations in hundreds of languages, while atmospheric barriers maintained perfect conditions for every species present. Sarah stood at the edge of the stage, her usual confidence tempered by the magnitude of the moment. Beside her, Zilara's scales shimmered with excitement, her full recovery evident in the vibrant patterns rippling across her form. Their research presentation had been moved to the main event, a rare honor for undergraduate students. "Neural network is ready for the empathic demonstration," Zilara whispered, her tendrils sensing the curiosity radiating from the audience. Their presence had already caused a stir. Few had seen a human and Viridian working together so seamlessly. Professor Kittle materialized center stage, their energy form pulsing with formal authority. "Today's presentation challenges our fundamental understanding of cross-species cooperation," they announced. "These students have developed a methodology that transcends traditional biological boundaries." Sarah and Zilara moved forward together, their movements synchronized through months of partnership. The quantum displays activated, showing their refined research setup, now rebuilt with additional safety protocols after the laboratory incident. "Our journey began with a simple question," Sarah started, her voice clear and steady. "What if the very traits that make our species different could become our greatest strengths when combined?" The holographic displays showed comparative data from their early experiments. Zilara continued seamlessly. "We discovered that human adaptive capabilities could enhance empathic readings far beyond traditional methods." Her tendrils extended, interacting with the crystalline interface they'd designed together. The displays erupted with complex patterns of biological and empathic data. Their presentation flowed like a dance between worlds, Sarah demonstrating physical adaptations while Zilara revealed the empathic dimensions of their research. The audience watched in fascination as they showed how combining their different evolutionary advantages had led to breakthrough discoveries. "The laboratory incident," Sarah acknowledged, addressing the event that had caught the university's attention, "proved that our methodology extends beyond theoretical applications." The displays showed footage from their evacuation effort, highlighting how their complementary abilities had saved lives. A quantum physics researcher raised their crystalline form. "How do you account for the natural barriers between high-gravity evolved species and empathic races?" The question carried undertones of traditional skepticism. Zilara's scales shifted to confident gold as she responded. "Those barriers exist only in our preconceptions," she gestured to Sarah. "Humans developed physical strength and emotional intelligence in parallel. Their adaptability makes them perfect partners for empathic species." The amphitheater erupted with questions and comments. Energy beings pulsed with excitement, crystalline forms chimed with interest, and atmospheric processors worked overtime to handle the increased activity from gas-breathing species. "The implications for medical science alone are revolutionary," a holographic medical researcher projected. "Combining physical and empathic healing techniques could transform trauma care across species." Sarah and Zilara spent the next hour demonstrating practical applications of their methodology. They showed how human adaptive responses could be mapped through empathic readings, and how Viridian sensory abilities could be enhanced through human environmental adaptation techniques. As the presentation concluded, Professor Kittle reappeared. "The university board has decided to establish a new research department," they announced. "The Institute for Evolutionary Cooperation will focus on combining different species' natural advantages. These students will serve as founding members." The audience's response was overwhelming. Species that had traditionally kept their distance began forming discussion groups, sharing ideas about potential collaborations. The barriers between different evolutionary paths seemed to dissolve in the wake of possibility. "We did it," Sarah whispered to Zilara, as they watched their work inspire new connections across the galaxy. "We showed them that our differences don't have to divide us." Zilara's tendrils curled with joy as she sensed the emotional atmosphere in the amphitheater. "No," she corrected gently, "we showed them that our differences make us stronger together." The quantum gardens sparkled in the light of 3 setting suns, their crystalline structures refracting the evening glow into countless colors. Sarah and Zillara sat in their usual spot, surrounded by the bioluminescent flowers that had witnessed their friendship's beginning. The end of the academic year brought with it a sense of accomplishment and anticipation for the future. The new research proposals are overwhelming the quantum servers, Sarah said, scrolling through a holographic display of applications to their newly established institute. Species that never collaborated before are requesting joint research opportunities. Zillara's tendrils swayed gently as she sensed the emotional currents flowing through the garden. Other students walked or floated nearby, their previous hesitation around cross-species interaction replaced by genuine curiosity. Their fear is giving way to possibility, she observed, her scales shimmering with contentment. A group of first-year students passed by. A young human walking comfortably alongside a Viridian, their casual interaction a mirror of what had once seemed impossible. Sarah smiled at the sight, remembering her first meeting with Zillara. Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from the smallest changes in perspective. The quantum displays shifted to show their latest project, an expansion of their research to include healing techniques from dozens of species. Their methodology had already led to breakthroughs in medical treatment, combining physical and empathic healing in ways that crossed biological boundaries. Professor Kittle says the Galactic Medical Council wants to implement our protocols across all major healing centers, Zillara said, her colors shifting to proud gold. They believe the combination of human resilience and empathic sensitivity could revolutionize trauma care. Sarah manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up another set of data. And the Xenobiology department is restructuring their entire curriculum based on our research. Future students will learn about different species through direct cooperation, not just theoretical study. The garden's atmospheric processors hummed softly as they adjusted to accommodate a passing group of methane-breathing researchers. What once would have caused nervous separation now resulted in friendly waves and translated greetings. The university had transformed, one interaction at a time. I received a message from home today, Zillara said softly, her tendrils curling with emotion. The Viridian Science Council is revising their historical archives. They're updating the sections about humans, removing the old warnings about dangerous deathworlders, and replacing them with accounts of our work together. Sarah's eyes widened at this news. Really? That's incredible. Earth's universities are doing something similar. They're establishing exchange programs specifically for human Viridian collaborative research. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We're not just changing the present. We're reshaping how our species will see each other in the future. A gentle chime echoed through the garden, signaling the start of evening cycles. The bioluminescent flowers began their nightly color change, but neither Sarah nor Zillara moved to leave. This moment felt too important to rush. You know, Sarah reflected, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. When I first came to the university, I thought I'd learn about other species. I never expected to learn so much about my own. Working with you showed me that human strength isn't just about physical capability. Zillara's scales rippled with affectionate agreement. And you taught me that empathy isn't limited to species who evolved with that specific ability. True understanding comes from being willing to look past our preconceptions. The quantum displays showed one final piece of data, their approved proposal for next year's research. They would lead a team of diverse species in exploring new ways to combine evolutionary advantages, pushing the boundaries of what was possible when different worlds worked together. To the future, Sarah suggested, her smile carrying all the warmth that Zillara's empathic senses had come to cherish. To the future, Zillara agreed, her tendrils extending in the gesture of friendship that now felt as natural as breathing. And to all the discoveries waiting beyond the stars we once feared to share,